let's discuss this now live with Aaron Good, political scientist and author. Aaron, great to have you on the program with us. First off, Trump is now threatening to, quote, obliterate Iran's oil wells, power plants, and desalination plants if the Strait of Hormuz is not immediately opened. I have a clip of Trump that I want to play. Let's take a listen to that first.
Great progress has been made, but if for any reason a deal is not shortly reached, which it probably will be, and if the Hormuz Strait is not immediately open for business, we will conclude our lovely stay in Iran by blowing up and completely obliterating all of their electric generating plants, oil wells, and Karg Island, and possibly all desalinization plants, which we have purposefully not yet touched.
All right, so Trump posting about his plans to commit war crimes on his Truth Social account. Aaron, what are your thoughts on this new barrage of threats from the U.S. president, all while the strait remains closed?
Well, it's kind of in keeping with his tendency to make absurd statements and to bluster about, what an awesome purveyor of violence he claims that he is, but they don't see, these threats seem to be the threats combined with him making allusions to negotiations that don't seem to be taking place at all are very strange, because on the one hand he seems to be so full of bluster and bravado. On the other hand, it's pretty well established that the Iranian leadership is not negotiating with him. And that he can't really follow through on some of these threats. He could potentially destroy the desalination plants in Iran, but they don't depend on that for all of their water. They wouldn't really be doomed if that were to happen. Whereas if Iran retaliated against those U.S. client states and against Israel and hit the desalination plants in those countries, they would be devastating. Same with the oil. It doesn't help the U.S. with their overall predicament to destroy Iranian oil. It would just drive up the price of oil, and the Iranians still have the capacity to retaliate and destroy the oil production in Saudi Arabia, and who knows how much Iraqi production would be online at that point as well. You've got Kuwait and UAE. There doesn't seem to be any good military option for Trump, bluster as he might.
So it seems like the goal for the Trump administration now has become to open the Strait of Hormuz, which, of course, was opened before the war even began. Right. So, I mean, if that's the goal that they're trying to pursue, what was the point of this whole war?
Well, it's pretty obvious that that wasn't the goal, because, as you say, if that had been the goal, that was the situation before the operation started. This is really the culmination of decades of the Greater Israel Epstein set, Zionist, ultra-Zionist neocon lobby. They have wanted to take down Iran for decades. And this begins, I think this phase of the Zionist project begins in the mid-90s after the defeat of H.W. Bush. It's sort of been forgotten by most people that he came out and said that there needed to be a Palestinian state. And his Secretary of State, James Baker, a couple of months into his presidency, George H.W. Bush's presidency in 1989, went to AIPAC and he said, it's time to put aside the unrealistic notion of Greater Israel, and we can have peace in the region. We just have to negotiate. And Ronald Reagan, on his way out the office, earlier in 1989, the last thing he did was to recognize the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, and that also outraged the Israel lobby. And even people like conservative icon Barry Goldwater were saying similar things, that the Zionists had too much power over Congress, and that they were damaging U.S. foreign policy, and that there needed to be a Palestinian state to put this issue to bed. But those forces did not win. George H.W. Bush lost. And shortly thereafter, we get the Clean Break report commissioned by Bibi Netanyahu, and including people like Wolfowitz, as I recall, and Richard Pearl, other of these, notorious Zionist neocons. And that's been the policy of the U.S. more or less in different ways. 9/11 just supercharges it. I think there are more people now who surmise that 9/11 was really the work of the Western regime, and most likely the obvious beneficiaries were these same neocons who are ultra-Zionists who believe in this Greater Israel project, who commissioned the Clean Break Report. They seem to be the likely beneficiaries of 9/11. And when you look at Al Qaeda and the fact that we installed Al Qaeda in Syria and we used them as our sock puppets, and that we used all these jihadis previously before 9/11 to fight the Soviets, and then also throughout the 90s in Bosnia, Kosovo, Libya, Chechnya, the 9/11 event stands out specifically as a very suspicious thing where these Western proxies supposedly attacked the United States, but in doing so, they enabled the worst and craziest foreign policy actors to go after their agenda in a spectacular and terrible way. So we've been living through decades of wars for this Greater Israel project because they, through a number of means, seem to have seized the apex of the American deep state or the foreign policy apparatus, whatever you want to call it.
Going down quite the rabbit hole there. Aaron, in this Operation Epic Fury, we've seen clearly a raft of failures and miscalculations by the United States. We've got energy prices up, U.S. soldiers killed, U.S. bases in the Middle East attacked, allies feeling the consequences. Is there anything that the U.S. is doing right, anything they're winning or actually achieving in this escalation?
If we can escape this without causing nuclear doomsday, and if it doesn't cause an economic depression that kills millions of people through, structural economic violence due to rising food and fuel costs and food shortages, fuel shortages, et cetera, then this could end up being a positive thing for the world because it is likely going to bring an end to centuries of Western global dominance and to, the U.S. global dominance project that has been in effect since the end of World War II. So in a way, you could say that they're doing something right by destroying this lawless, murderous global empire that the U.S. has presided over for decades, and which has killed millions of people through wars and covert operations and so on. But even more people, it kills just through the structural violence of policing economic regimes that screw over populations around the world and allow corporate actors to essentially expropriate the natural resources and dominate the markets of nations around the world. So to the extent that anything good is being done by the U.S., it's that the U.S. empire is destroying its ability to go around and dominate and screw over the people of the world, which has been their main objective since the end of World War II, and then since the decision to go for global dominance over the international capitalist system. That seems to be collapsing now. And if it can do so without causing even greater tragedy and harm for people, then it's a positive step for humanity.
What are your thoughts on Donald Trump offering nations to either buy costly U.S. oil or go and grab the Strait of Hormuz?
I think these are not things that are going to appeal to people around the world. Buying expensive, overpriced U.S. LNG and petroleum that's acquired through fracking and so on. This is not really a solution for the world's energy crisis, the one that seems to be beginning right now. And opening the Strait of Hormuz does not seem to be possible. It's the geography of it. They don't even have any ships. The Navy, as I understand it, isn't even very close to Iran because they're afraid to be, because they'll just get droned and torpedoed, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, what you can say about the Iranians is that all the statements that have been made about their resolve and their military strength, they have been able to back all of these things up. They are not prone to idle boasting. And when these Iranian leaders and officials are saying, "Oh, we are eager for the Americans to show their face, in or around Iran," we'll give them a greeting to remember. I think that they should take this very seriously. This is not Iraq. This is not Venezuela. This is not Grenada. I think that if they attempt to stage an amphibious landing or an invasion or some other seizure of the Strait of Hormuz, the consensus from the people that I would take seriously seems to be that this will be a fiasco that will make the Bay of Pigs look like a cakewalk.
All right. Well, on that note, we're going to leave it there for now. That's Aaron Good, political scientist, author of American Exception, Empire, and the Deep State. Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks.